Hello and welcome to another episode of Supercoach Insider. My name is Ben.
And I'm the Brisbane hater.
The Brisbane hater. Thank you for joining us. This is the Brisbane Lions team analysis, the team that everyone loves and cares for, the team that everyone loves to watch, Chris.
No, that's actually very incorrect. I think that everyone loves to hate Brisbane, except for people in Brisbane. But I don't think any even people in Brisbane really like Brisbane. So
what is this, Inception? Just shut up, Chris. Let me talk. This is my moment. All right, we're going to have enough Collingwood bashing in a minute because even Collingwood supporters don't like Collingwood right now. So
well, that's also true. So I'm just going to hold my tongue.
So basically we're going to find, let's just start again, shall we? You can find us on our socials. It is SC Insider 100, and that is on Facebook, on Twitter, on SoundCloud, Spotify, etc. Find us all there. And on YouTube, you can find us also. It is just search Supercoach Insider.
Yep, and on Apple iTunes as well.
Yes, anywhere you want us, you can get us.
Just there. It's all good.
Just there. I'm just going to crack another one of these. Thank you, Lychee, mate. That's 3 shout-outs, mate. You are blessed.
Hashtag blessed.
There you go.
You reached for the blessed line.
Oh, I had to do it quick. So
how do you remember which ones are what?
Well, you meant to label them, but just, I'm getting used to
up
it.
here's for thinking. I respect that.
Yeah, Brucey's online too. I know that. All right, so let's start off and we're going to kick off with these rookies. This is our Brisbane team analysis and we're doing a release basically. Each day we're going to release our team by team focusing on rookies, on standard and on also draft relevance. So it really does cover all the platforms and all the bases on those who play Supercoach.
Yeah, and obviously the rookies really is the knowledge that people want. They want to find out absolutely everything about these guys before they hit the preseason, just to make their watch list and see who's going to be relevant.
Yeah, it definitely makes it easier if you have a little bit of a short list, or if you hear someone's name a couple of times and then you jump in and you actually hear them being named in the media, it makes it a lot easier. Now,
unfortunately, this year, there's not many guys, I would say, that are going to be rookie relevant for Brisbane. But
are you kidding?
Yeah.
Well, Chris, I already know the fact that you've missed at least 2 or 3, 2.5, I'm going to say.
Yeah, that's incorrect. But let's go through them. So obviously the draft picks that they had, Blake Coleman at 24 was their first pick. He's actually the brother of Keaton, who's also, is that how you pronounce it? Keaton Coleman? He's obviously on the Brisbane list as well. He's a small forward but plays tall due to his athletic ability. And he can jump to mark the football even though he's only 179 centimetres, but he's electric. He is absolutely lightning quick.
Trust a guy named Coleman to play as a forward.
Right, absolutely.
Give that guy a medal.
And his brother's on the same list. So he's obviously a long-term project player. Him and his brother both moved over from NT when they were 16 years old. And they've got attributes that, put them both in the sort of Charlie Cameron small forward type that's explosive and agile, but can mark the football and can really burst. They really picked him up. They didn't really want to pick him this early, but they had access to him and he got bid. So that's why he went at 24.
Yep. However, he will be in a long line of small forwards because the small forwards aren't really the issue at the Lions at the moment. So
nope.
I think it's going to take a lot of injury in order for these kind of players to come through.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. So unfortunately, I don't think that he's at all Supercoach relevant this season. I would be shocked if he actually got a game. But one to keep an eye on because he's one that can really explode out of the blocks and he would be. I really look forward to actually seeing him play. So the next one at 43 was their next pick was Harry Sharpe. And,
Sharpe.
Big raps on this boy. He's relatively new to football, but he's just an absolute endurance machine. He clocked a 5:28 2K time trial, which is just absolutely unheard of.
No, he went 3K time trial. 3K under 9 minutes. He went absolutely ham.
Well, that's a different number. Yeah, he did as well. So he's a middle distance runner, obviously.
Broke the Lions record for 3K time trial, which
he
is
broke
ridiculous.
The combine record by like 25 seconds.
He's a freak.
Like the guy's insane in terms of his athletic ability for endurance.
His skills are sharp.
No, well, actually, that's the one knock on his game. So unfortunately, the most recent stats that we have about him was 2 years ago, because he didn't play last year. But he went where his disposal efficiency at 50% and only 1/3 contested. So he's got a lot of work to do on his disposal, but they've picked him up at 43 as a project player, and they're going to be their target. They don't need to work on his endurance base. They need to just work on his skills. So hopefully they can do that, and I think he'll be a good player.
You know he's fit enough, and realistically,
Absolutely.
It's not surprising the contested numbers, because if you're that fit, generally you're an outside player anyway. Get it into open space, and he'll burn people left, right, and centre.
Oh, absolutely. I think you will see him, rotate through that midfield on the wing and half forward. I think that's going to be his long-term place. So
even Lockie Hunter hasn't had a contested possession in about 8 years, Chris.
We said that about Lockie Hunter, and ever since he's literally proved us wrong every single week.
Ever since he gave us that 0 stars back in the day, he's been laughing at us.
But every time I do see him pop up in the middle of nowhere with the possession, I still go, yes, seagull.
That's great.
Classic Hunter. And their last draft pick was Henry Smith, taking a pick 48. He's 117k ruck, a bit of a project player, but he did play 13 senior games in the Sandful for Woodville West Torrens. But basically, because he's so tall, he's 202 centimeters. He just dominated at half forward without leaping for the football. So he averaged 4.6 contested marks per game, which is stupidly high. To put that into perspective, the AFL average for the leaders in the AFL is like 2.3 per game. It's basically double that. So,
and if you're Mason Cox, you get 1 a game.
Yeah, and 8 free kicks that don't get called, but whatever. We're not here to talk about Mason Cox, or maybe we are. So the problem really is that obviously at AFL level, if he's going to be sitting at deep forward, he's going to be playing on guys that are around his height and a lot stronger. So he definitely needs to build up his core, and he needs to learn how to run and jump at the football instead of just sit there and take a contested grab.
Fair call.
But the only other knockers, of course, is kicking for goal is basically Cloak. He kicked 16 goals, 14 that season as well.
Well, he'll fit right in alongside Hipwood and Danaher then.
Yeah. I mean, they're really not helping themselves, are they?
Not really. I'm going to touch on a couple here. Eli Smith is my absolute smoky. He is locked and loaded for me.
Absolutely.
He's a 123k forward mid, which gives you that great flexibility, particularly through that forward slot. He extended his contract to the end of 22, and that was last year. So he did a couple-year extension, which means that they actually did rate him. And he's been in the system for a couple years now. He was the end of a first-round pick. He was a big-bodied midfielder, and basically you look at the spots at the Lions for a big-bodied midfielder, there's not really anywhere to actually go.
That's the problem. There's nowhere on the 22.
However, right? Because he's behind Lyons, so the kind of, you need to actually play a different role. And unfortunately for Keys could not play another role except for inside mid, which is why he's doing well at the Crows and why we kind of let him go. Now, he actually has been flying this preseason. He was nominated. So every time they walked around and asked teammates who's killing it this preseason, most of the teammates said Eli Smith is killing it.
The same thing last season.
But here's the thing.
You keep saying but.
No. Yeah.
But I'm waiting for the but.
Well, you'll be the butt of all jokes if you interrupt me again. Basically, he did a lot of work on his running.
Where's the mute button?
He's been, yeah, I will. He did a lot of work on his running, so he's been working really hard on his running. He was always good on the inside, but they're trying to develop his outside game. He is killing it, and he is tipped to be on the wing. He is make-shifting, and that's why I think with the teams, I think he will actually replace Robbo. I think Robbo will become a little bit more of a team player.
Not this year, surely.
Yep, this year. Eli. He is, he's been killing it.
I mean, look, you heard it here first. Write that down.
Well, he's in my side.
Remember that down, and
again,
you're welcome for my Van Wilder
someone
reference.
who has not played a game yet. He has now been in the system for a couple of years. They've signed him on for 2 more. He needs to be playing.
Is he still mid-forward?
Yes.
Oh, that's so
and
good.
He's 123. It's a bargain.
I love it.
Bargain.
All right, well, you might have to jump in with your best 22 here as well, but I've gone with my best effort. I've gone with Marcus Adams in the back pocket. Obviously, huge body, but he does just love an intercept grab as well. And I think that he can actually interchange with Ainsworth, who I've got on the bench. So depending on matchups, he might rotate to the bench and make it less minutes. Andrews obviously and Birchall, they did retain him. He's obviously on the rookie list. Is his body still is good?
Well, he pulled that hammy in that final.
Yeah,
I think so. Who knows? I mean,
look.
And the thing with this time of year
they
is
re-rookied him. So
yeah. But the thing with this time of year is that because of COVID and they culled all of these journalists, no one's really reporting
especially
on
Brisbane.
Anything. Brisbane are not doing, a lot of teams aren't reporting. And it's only if they actually do it themselves to build some of that hype and to try and let people know. That's the only information we're finding out right now.
The best journos that they had in the AFL were the ones that did the interstate. Like they went to all the training sessions. They went to all the games on, they went to Brisbane and Gold Coast.
Had a good rapport, so the people actually tell them more than they'd probably tell other people.
They don't exist anymore. They all got fired, so it's terrible. Harsh. They really need to get them back. Off the half-back line, I've got Starcevic, who had a great season last year, Gardner and Rich. And obviously through the midfield and wing, Robbo. So I've got Robbo starting, Neil in the centre and McCluggage on the other wing. I'd love to see McCluggage get more minutes on the ball. I just don't see with this lineup how he gets that. Zorko at half forward flank with Hipwood and Rayner. And then in the forward pocket, you've got Cameron, Danaher and McCarthy, who could also obviously rotate with McStay, who I've got on the bench. Obviously Big O and Jared Berry and Lyons coming in there in the midfield with Zack Bailey and Ellis Yeoman filling up those last two spots. So missing on the bench that have chances in that rotation, you've got Dev Robertson, obviously Eli Smith, as you mentioned. You've got Archie, you've got Cockatoo, if he's ever going to be fit and healthy. Reece Matheson is obviously up to the level at AFL standard, in my opinion, and Archie Smith. So depending on matchups, they may want to still throw Archie Smith in there. And that's how I've gone with the 22
No,
there.
that's fair. I think Adams is definitely a good player, but then when you look at quite a few of those
Matchup
tools,
related,
it is matchup related.
It's like, do we really want to run three? And like, you can't run all three of them against some sides.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I wouldn't be surprised if McCluggage was probably the first drop into that gut. So you had, Berry, Lyons, Neil, and McCluggage would probably be my first bet to go in. I think Robbo might actually play a little bit more of that forward sort of role, pinch hitting off the bench.
The great thing that they've got is they've got depth and multi-position players, because you can get Zorko running through that midfield. You can get Rayner running through that midfield now. Like, he's ready. And I don't know if I don't think they're going to do it. I don't think they're going to pull the trigger because it's not a list need.
Lyons, exactly. Lyons is killing it as a big body midfielder, so they don't really need to bash up McCluggage at the moment. I think for me, he's still probably a year or so away from being that top echelons as far as a gun. Zorko he sometimes starts on the wing, he sometimes goes through the midfield, and generally I think this year he'll probably play a little bit more forward. Gut feel, I think even then Zack Bailey starts on the wing sometimes to kind of free up with that space.
Yeah, I mean, Zack Bailey is good because he can play across that entire wing. So he can play halfback, he can play wing, he can play half forward, he can play pocket.
Shout out to Zack Bailey. He copped so much flack from me.
Yeah, I gave it to him as well.
In the members section, right? Gabba members.
I was so
years.
drunk that one night when he just turned over
everything. The second they gave it to him, it's like, who's got it? It's like Bailey. And then he literally turned it over, caused a goal. I gave him so much for years. And
Since then, he's been really good.
2020, he was the most improved player at the Lions. And I can't give him flack anymore, Chris.
Fair enough, mate. And
yes,
I'm in agreement. However, I don't think he's really was definitely not standard relevant. Maybe someone you can pick up in a late draft league.
Right. So here comes a long segue. P.S. I have a little bit of a gripe here, Chris, because when we look at players we've recruited from Geelong, you look at Alan Christensen, we then got McCarthy, we're looking at getting, we got Cockatoo, and you know what we've brought with them? The ability to lose in straight sets in finals. What have they brought with them?
Patrick Dangerfield's listening to this somewhere, and he just rolled over in his bed. He rolled out of the bed and hit his head.
Please.
You're responsible for his injury issues.
He's too busy listening to Union podcast, Patrick Dangerfield. Anyway, so Nathan Cockatoo, Nakai Cockatoo, Nakai Cockatoo, he's a 123k forward mid. If they get his body right, he is definitely someone that could actually swing into that mix. Would not surprise me if he sort of even replaced like an Ellis Yeoman, because he's a little bit more multi-dimensional. He's really explosive. He was picked 10. He just hasn't had a good run. And if they get their body right, because they've got McCarthy's body right, Danaher's pretty much been joining in most of the group sessions all preseason. So if they get his body right as well, he's definitely someone that could be very beneficial. Yeah,
I definitely think that there's probably 3 to 4 spots that are still tentatively available based on matchups and form. And that's Adams, Starcevic, Ellis Yeoman and Ainsworth. All those guys will find themselves in and out. I think the rest of that what does that make it, 18?
Yeah.
I think they're all pretty well locked into the side if they're fit. So
I actually think Archie's in. Archie, very underrated. He was like back pocket. He was killing. It's tough. I think Archie could also.
Talent. They've got a lot of those same guys. He
was actually very impressed. Yeah. But the hard thing is when you're a winning side, Chris, it's hard to kind of get a game.
Yeah, that's true.
Otherwise, everyone would move to Adelaide. Hey, Keys. Sorry, little dip.
He has the key to the city in Adelaide.
Jeez.
That was my first attempt at a pun. And I think it went all right.
No, I need a fail sound. Wow, wow, wow. Okay, let's go on to premiums. Lachie Neale, everyone's talk about is Lachie Neale.
Oh, Lachie.
And yes, he's really expensive, and it's really hard to say, can I see improvement? It's kind of hard to see him going any better. I mean, he won the Brownlow, he killed it, he averaged extremely high, 134.4. Am I picking him because I think he's going to average me 135? No, I'm not. I'm looking for a little bit of stability in what is an anarchy section of the field. So in that midfield section, I'm looking for someone. I can't see him averaging less than 120. And yes, you might overpay for that. However, he has a high ceiling. He scores really well. He has the middle bye. I can't fault him.
And you're going to need a captain, vice captain option. Yep. And it's always good, especially for one of those to be a midfielder. Some teams, he just goes ham. He literally will just go ridiculous. He's going to burn you if you don't have him. And the last 2 seasons, he's proven that the first 6-7 games, it's just 140, 140, 140, 140, 140. Beers. That's pretty much what it is.
Well, everyone forgets how good people are in the off season. I'm trying to think I think it was a Saints player back in the day who always used to go absolutely awesome for a few rounds and then get shut down. Yeah. Not those other beers. Anyway, Lachie Neale, he's played very durable.
It definitely was the Saints player. Was it Carlisle?
What?
I just went on a tangent.
Yes.
Just having one look at that crook-looking bastard, you could tell he didn't play sport, couldn't you?
Yeah,
bloody Carlisle. Okay, so Lachie Neale, he played 126 out of 127 games, so highly durable, which is another reason he is high on my list. That's the last 6 seasons there. He's actually averaged 115.5 over the last 6 seasons.
Do you think 720 is too much for arguably the number 1 Supercoach player of the last 3 years?
No.
I don't either.
No. And basically he has a 59 game average of 122.5. He's 27, so he's actually in a really good nick. In 2020, he only had 3 scores under 100, and yes, he probably got tagged or just sort of backed off in those, which was a 55, a 72, and an 87. However, between round 1 and round 12, he averaged 146. Massive. He did average 111 from round 13 to 118, which is, I think, a couple years in a row he's tailored off a little bit at the back end.
Now, what I will say is obviously he's a ball-winning midfielder and he wins a lot of ball. And obviously he's going to get more possessions. His possessions rate's going to go up. But there were some games this year when he got close to 40 possessions. Like, unheard of for the rest of the league. So what is that going to be this year? Is it going to be 50 possessions? You know, He could potentially eclipse what he's done even in a year where he obviously was getting a lot more scaling and he was playing like 90s. What time on ground was he on? Some stupid
92.3 this year. He went up 3.5%, which is
never went off
near that 4%. Yeah, and normally he plays 88.8 anyway, so he plays a lot of time on ground. He had 12 scores of 130 plus, including 3 over 140, 4 over 150, 2 over 160, 1 over 170. So it was in like between 130 to 140, 40 to 50, etc. The last 2 seasons, and this is why I think he's great in draft. If you have maybe pick one, you might go, Gawn, fair enough, I can see that. However, Neale is so underrated, particularly picking up in that first sort of 2 picks, 100% for me. I know someone actually posted saying, oh, should I get Grundy at pick 2? I'm like, no. Neale, in the last 2 seasons, has scored 110 from nearly 70% of his games and scored 140% from 43.5% of those games.
Which is insane.
Well, it is. It's insane. Basically, 43% of the time he scored 140 or plus, which is your captain.
He's the current Supercoach GOAT.
Even in standard, if you put a VC or a C on him, 43%. So that's nearly, that's amazing stats there. It's 4 out of every 10 times, if not more.
In total points, he just kills everybody.
Huge.
Like, you got to remember that Supercoach is a game about total points.
Yep.
It's not a game about averages. It's a game about total points.
And only 30% of the time did he go under 110.
Yeah. So I definitely think
you can't fault him. And again, I'm picking him because he's a Brisbane Lion, and you have to pick Brisbane Lions players.
No.
Well, if you can't pick people
wants
from,
to, they just have to.
If you can't pick people from the team you like, then who can you pick? Now that moves me on to the next player, Mr. Dane Zorko himself, a 525k forward mid. He's added forward eligibility, which means that
the magician.
Naturally, people get excited. And I am usually very excited, except, however, I'm not starting him.
No, I don't. I don't see the appeal this season because I see the huge value in other forward line players from other club, or actually from this club as well. But I do like Zorko as a pick, and I wouldn't say that people are bad for picking him. It just doesn't suit how I'm playing this season. I'll probably want to upgrade him. He'll probably get some huge scores, and he'll probably kill me at some stage.
Yep.
The other thing I will say is that obviously last season with his goals, that is obviously added to the inflation of his average and his price. Now, I don't think regardless, can he do that again? Can he back that up? Absolutely he can.
Yep.
So there's no hesitation to say, look, he can definitely go that. Can he improve that? I don't know.
Well, if they're winning games, he should get a fair chunk. They
were winning games last year.
He won't get tagged. I know, that's what I mean. But
you're so used to losing, you just expect the worst.
So, yeah, exactly. Here's where Zorko's value is, and this is also a good question. So, Seeker has actually asked about Dane Zorko at F2 or F3. Do we rate it? I do rate it because he did actually go down.
It'll be unique.
Well, he did go down 3% time on ground, which is funny because he actually played a little bit more forward and it was a shorter game, so go figure. He did have a little bit of some soft tissue injuries start to creep in, and I think he probably will play a little more forward, which is why I'm not so excited. However, you can't fault him at an F2 or 3 because I still think he'll be a top 10 forward.
Absolutely. I think there's no doubt. I think he's going to be in those top handful of guys.
I will want him at some point. It's more about when he accepts my coffee as to when we actually get to that. Well, apparently
it's not about his Supercoach ability. It's more about him denying you for buying him a coffee.
And I'm absolutely cursed now because he's too busy being captain to actually get a coffee. So I have to wait, apparently. I have to wait.
Captain's log.
Zorko was injured in round 4 on a 47, so his true average is 105.7, and he did go absolutely ham. Those last 7 rounds, he averaged 110, and he has a big ceiling. So he got a 163, a 118, 91, 61, 159, 69, 106. And my goal is to try and hope he has a couple of those little off games where he drops a little and then jump on.
See, where I can see people selecting Zorko is throwing right now. There's a lot of question marks over Dangerfield, and people have 600K to spend in their forward line.
Yep.
And they're like, okay, well, if it's not him, who is the next best forward?
Well, Danger's groin, yeah, for sure. He's out. Dunkley, there's question marks on him and what role he'll be scoring. So then that leaves Marshall, where you're like, okay, he's done pretty well. If he's getting the number 1 ruck, he would actually be a good pick. And then after that, it kind of falls away a bit.
Well,
except for Zorko.
Marshall in my team is F1, but I see Marshall in a lot of teams as an F2. So who is that F1? And it's probably either Zorko or Sidebottom, to be completely honest. So
I don't rate Sidebottom.
Well, this year could be completely different. And I don't mind Sidebottom at all. With no Trelaw, is he playing inside? Is he playing outside? It'll be very dependent on role, but I do want to have a look at it.
He's overpriced. He's about 18 points overpriced. Don't touch him.
He's about 18 points underpriced. Shh.
He's not. Jared Lyons is the next one, and I've seen this one spoken about a little bit on Slack. Shout out to looking at our friends Dr. Supercoach and that Slack channel there. So also, side note, support whoever support your friends, support the other podcasts. So Dr. Supercoach, SC Elites, do give them a shout out. We're not selfish. We're not everyone's cup of tea. There's plenty of love to go around. So if you want to jump on the Discord for Dr. Supercoach, jump on. If you want to jump on the Discord and go for SC Elites or you want to donate to them, go nuts. Right? We're a loving bunch.
And if you want to give us beer, then give us beer.
Yeah, that's we're simple folk. We like our beer
or
and
vodka.
Trying different beers. And this is actually top notch. I had to shop around for this beer.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought I was going to have to get it delivered. I was like, what are you doing to me?
You had to shop around on your 4 weeks off. You had to go on a long drive, 10 minutes down the road.
It was 6 weeks. Okay, Jared Lyons, he played 22 games in 2019. He played all 17 again this year. Average 112.7, and he actually went up 3.7% time on ground, which funnily enough, a lot of that came in the back end of the year when he actually played a little bit more. It's almost like he developed his tank a bit more. So he started off a little bit more, less time on ground, had a few more rotations, I think, forward, straight into the guts there, and he actually increased his time on ground as it went on. And that's kind of been the last sort of year and a half, really, that he has been really dominant, and that's why people are kind of thinking, hey, maybe I can actually go this route. And the only concern is Berry, is McCluggage, are these other young guys going to, Rayner, Lord forbid, is he going to pull up a trucker? and actually start to dominate. And I'm like, well, personally, I think
or even just take some time out of his mid rotations.
I think Lyons is still a safe pick this year. I think it'll be next year. I think maybe things will change a little bit. I still rate him. He's averaged 113 his last 29 games, so he is consistent, particularly when you look even at a draft league. I think you can't go wrong. He generally is durable, doesn't miss games, scored 13 scores of 113 or more from his 17 games. So that's only 4 scores under that sort of 113 bracket.
Yeah, you know what I think he gets? He gets the Dane Swan effect, which basically is like, you know, when Pendlebury was absolutely tearing up, Dane Swan would just run around with no one on him. And that's what happens with Neil gets most of the midfield attention and just no one goes or follows line. And you just see him. I love when he just pops up in the forward line and grabs a mark and you're like, who's on him? Like literally there's no one around here. I don't understand.
Was it Grundy? It's Grundy.
How did he get that goal?
Absolutely. Exact same thing happens with Lyons.
Yeah, right. So, but he has a good ceiling as well. So 124, 126, 136, 138, 138, 147. Really clean. He had 4 scores under 100. Yes, they weren't great. However, for a draft league particularly, I think he's very underrated. And apparently, Chrissy told Adelaide and the Gold Coast he was going to prove them wrong, and they both thought he was Lyon.
I don't know if that was true.
It would have been.
I still would love to know what happened with the Gold Coast. I think everyone wants to know. Eventually, the story will come out, but it won't be for until he's retired or something.
Maybe he'll write a book.
Yeah.
Next
hopefully.
one, Daniel Rich is 483,000. He's a defender. Very underrated as well. He actually got injured on 22 in round 8, which means he has a true average of 95.7. Really good again for draft leagues, I think. Standard, I think you can kind of hold off a little bit. I think there are other better options, and I think you're better off staying with that. And hopefully maybe he might start a little slow or you pick him up. He's definitely not a bad option to have.
The problem with Rich is just always that he is the number one distributor at the Lions, especially coming out of defence or even into the forward line. They look to get the ball in his hands as often as possible, which means if you have half a brain about you, you would lock him down.
The amount of times
half
they
a brain.
offload, it's
dumb.
It's like Jaden Short.
Yeah.
He's just standing there on his own.
Absolutely the same.
And he seagulls. He pulls a little Lockie Hunter.
He
comes up behind them saying, hey, bro, give me the ball. And then he just roosts it from 60.
Anyone got the ball?
And then the opposition is standing there going, oh, how did that happen?
I didn't know that he could kick 60 metres on the fly at a 45.
I know. All of the opposition will be like,
Right in front of me. Right in front of me.
Right in front of me.
And they just watch it sail over their heads.
How did that happen? Okay, so he's 30 years old, though. He has started to have a couple of soft tissue injuries come through, so that is a little bit of concern. He has actually averaged...
That's a bit rich from you.
Well, he averaged 89 for the first 7 rounds.
Come on, that was good.
Bit rich from me. Oh, my God.
You didn't even give me a little tip.
It's too saucy for me.
Strawberry.
Daniel Rich, maybe those lats are starting to get in the way.
So good.
Yeah, so he averaged 89 for the first 7 rounds and averaged 114 for the last 4. He is definitely someone, particularly for draft, I don't think he can go wrong. I can't see him really going below 90.
The other thing I see is that there's no competition for that with
that spot. Witherden's
gone. There's no one else really. They've used Ainsworth a little bit as a kicker, but he's really not up to the level.
No, he's not.
No.
The butcher.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if how they manage it now with him being really the only one that's going to be able to drive them forward from defence.
I will be the one.
There can be only one. Write that down.
Jet Li, good movie. Hugh McCluggage, right? So Hugh McCluggage is 545k. He's a midfielder only.
Too expensive. Too many.
Super classy. He's basically the same price as Walsh, except I think Walsh has already been spoken about getting a better role. Also finished the year a little bit better. However, I do love the suitcase.
I love him.
So he played 21 games in 2019. He played all 17 this year, averaged 101.5. He actually went up 2.9% time on ground, so not too surprising. Again, the better players generally get on field a little bit more. He actually looks pretty good, 84% time on ground, 8 scores under 100, which is the concerning part. So he did kind of go missing a little bit.
That comes with the inconsistency of just playing on a wing.
Basically, he had a score of 60, 66, and 74. He had 8 scores of 110, but he has always had a good ceiling, which is why I like him for draft, because his ceiling is... He is, and if he goes off, he goes off.
Fuel the jet.
Fuel the jet. So he had 8 scores of 110, including a 119, a 131, a 141, and a 155. He's played 60 of the last 61 games in his first 3 years. So again, he's someone that I definitely do rate. And you just know the suitcase is going to be reliable interstate.
Sometimes not, depending on if you fly Qantas or Virgin. No, I do actually. I rate him a lot, but the only reason I wanted to pick him last year because I was like, impact players, like he's just going to go ham. The problem's obviously just the role. Like if he got inside minutes and consistent inside minutes,
and he could definitely play inside if they needed him.
He's on the level of a Sam Walsh. You know, he's that good of a player. He plays outside.
Mind you,
it's a snock and juice.
If Neil or Jared Lyons gets injured, I am looking at McCluggage.
Yeah, definitely one to keep an eye on for sure. Definitely good in draft leagues.
Draft leagues.
But just make sure you don't pick him up too early because I think people will pounce on him.
Yeah,
because he's up and coming.
He might. I think his ceiling will probably be 105. I don't think he's going to go absolutely crazy.
And I think people are going to pick him at 110. They might pick him super early. Like I think people go really early on him.
If you are in a league up here where there's a lot of Brisbane folk, then yes, he will probably get early. So always know your crowd.
No, you forget that people who live in Brisbane don't like Brisbane.
They don't like the Brisbane Broncos because they suck right now.
No, there's still a lot of Brisbane Broncos fans. Thank you very much.
Okay, a little bit of mid-price madness, and we're going to add in one particular person in that section who will be next off my rank. So I've got Cam Sprayner, first of all. Still mid-pricer. He's just hanging around. He's 382K forward only this year. He has been...
really reliable for shots at goal.
I keep telling people he leans back when kicking. Are you just trying to goat me? Is that what's going on? He leans back when he kicks, and it's like, no wonder. He literally...
What does he do?
He lean back.
I was literally about to go, lean back. Lean back.
Leans back when he kicks. And it's horrible. And I'm like, why? So he averaged 73.1 in 2020. He only went up by 0.8 for time on ground, so not great for that kind of explosive sort of player. However, he has been taking little steps each season, and those kind of explosive players, Dusty Martin, Petrarca, etc., take more. It's not a 3-year breakout. You're looking at more like 4, 5, sort of 6 years for them to actually develop the tank and actually be more impactful.
Every now and then he does things that you just like, that's why he was number one.
Yeah.
Like he's talented.
Oh, for sure.
And he's a match winner. He just does stupid things every now and then. You're like, what are you doing?
I agree, but 73 average, not too bad. I wouldn't mind him in a draft bench. If you could bench him, I reckon he could go 80 this year. I still see a little bit of progression. I see him get a little bit more midfield rotation through there. Word is he still is improving his fitness. He's actually working really hard. Instead of going down to Victoria for a week or so over Christmas to spend time with his family, I think the team was actually training together. So you had McCluggage and Berry and a lot of these guys were actually just training. And he didn't want to miss out on that. He actually was like, no, it's good for my football. We want to actually improve. I'm not going down home for Christmas. I'm going to stay and train with the boys, which I think is awesome.
So he didn't train with the other forwards that all miss goals as well? He just trained with the midfield group or... That's probably a good idea. He's probably onto something.
Not going to bite. He did average 88 for the last 4 rounds where he did go 80, 125, 34, which is Sprayner, and 114. So he had 3 good scores out of that. Injured in round 10 on 35, so he did a hamstring, which is not great at first soft tissue, but his true average was 75.7. So I don't think it's unrealistic that he could average 80. Put him on your bench in draft so that way you can always move him on if a better option floats up. And the next one...
He's definitely a guy you can also loophole. Like he could definitely, like he can punch out a big score. So
yeah, he definitely could. Joe Danaher is the next one, and this is a funny thing.
Jumping Joe, let's go.
Yeah, don't know how we got to the Lions.
Don't know how he took Mark of the Year.
Yeah, and so he was my
Still
question.
hurts.
So when it's like, hey, well, how do you feel about Danaher coming to the Lions? And I said, do I have to like him yet? I'm not sure. I think he's great for the Lions. It costs nothing except for money. You know, what's money amongst friends? And I still think, he's great for us. And my only concern is that it's like, okay, well, on his day, he can...
Before you continue, aren't you completely frustrated that like no one in that forward line can take a grab?
No, I'm not worried about the grabbing. I'm more worried...
outside of Danaher now, but like for the last 2 years, man, every time that ball goes into that 50, all that happens is the ball gets spot. No one takes a contested grab there.
No, basically, I think in training they actually work on curling because the ball just spends all of its time on the ground, and they
Literally.
they just all the time's on the ground.
I mean, they've got good small forwards, so it does help. But yeah, it's really annoying.
Danaher will help. My only concern is that between him and Hipwood, they're going to kick 70 goals, 140 behinds, and 35 out in the full. I'm not even kidding.
I think you overestimated with 70 goals, but I'll give you it.
35 each.
Oh,
right?
okay, cool, yeah.
Between them. So
Okay.
70 goals between them, 140 out on the full, and 140 behinds, 35 out in the full.
Honestly, man,
That's the ratio.
what was the most goals that Danaher kicked in a season? I think it was close to 50, wasn't it? Something like really good. Like he was in the race for the Coleman that year.
Yeah. And
Like,
he
can do that again with good service.
He is a really good player, and I think he is great for us. I think it'll actually free up Hipwood, who's actually not that kind of. He'll get the second defender, which I think will be great for him. So
I think what they've got to do is play Joe close to the goals, in my opinion, and get him leading him onto the football, and get Hipwood to hit the logos because he can burn people. He's got that pace. He's got the good field kick. He can really do that. So
here's the value for Danaher, and I know Seeker was asking the same kind of thing, is I think for Danaher, he's 233K. I think he is so cheaply priced. He's been training with the group mostly through the whole preseason, so there's no real issues at the moment. And Big O is the number one ruck. Steph Martin's now gone, right, which makes sense because we kind of knew that either Steph had to go or, Mick Stay or someone was going to kind of lose their role. Now, it's going to be interesting because Danaher could now be the second ruck option, which he's done before.
I really hope he doesn't. I just don't want to see him. I'd rather have Hipwood do that. I just don't want his... I know the premise and I know he's got more experience. I just don't want to see them try and put him in a role that could injure him more.
Okay, so who's going to do it then?
Hipwood.
You reckon Hipwood?
Yeah.
Jeez, has he been eating...
He's got the leap.
Has he been eating beefcakes all preseason or something? He's like a string bean.
Just run and jump. You don't have to sit there and wrestle with someone all day. You can run and jump at the ball.
Imagine Mumford up against string bean Hipwood.
And you know what? There's no way that Mumford's playing against Brisbane.
That's true. They don't
I'll
need
tell
him.
you that one.
They don't need him.
I'll give you that. I'll smoke you that knowledge.
You're right. Okay, so... For me, it's a no-brainer. If he starts, I'm starting Danaher. And the reason I'm starting him is he's cheaper than Franklin. Yes, I know he's never really averaged much more than like a low 80. However,
I think it was like 85, wasn't it?
Yeah, not great, and his body's not great. However, for me, he's cheaper than Franklin. He still has a fairly high ceiling. I'm hoping for a couple of games to string together. Now, these people I'm looking at bringing in, whether they're mid-prices, whether they're cheap enough like him and Zeeble, I'm looking, is there someone that can make me $100,000? At the minimum.
I want more.
I know, but at the minimum, can you see $100,000?
Oh, easily.
Yeah. So
like that's going to happen just regardless. I think that you can string together 2 back-to-back tons, and then bang, you've already made 100, and you can make that extra 50K. I reckon you can easily make 150 out of him.
Yep.
And look, depending on how his body holds up, he could surprise, man. He could like move into that 90-95 range.
Who knows what's possible when you get out of Victoria?
That's true. That's true.
Apparently,
it's very windy down that hill.
Well, he's happy too, being out of the lights. So, not happy about being in the sun, but yes, we'll move on. Let's go a little bit of draft relevance. We'll round this up quickly. So, Jared Berry, really good for draft. Averaged 97.1 this year. He actually got injured in round 16 on 48 with a dislocated shoulder, but his true average then was 100.5. So, he is really good value. You could get him around that sort of 100 mark. I think that's a pretty good option.
He's been a great draft selection for me for last. I've had him for a couple of years, and
he's been good.
He's slowly getting better and better and more consistent, but he's just not, unfortunately, with those top dogs in midfield. He's still in that rotation, doesn't get all the minutes.
Correct.
Spends a lot of time off the ground.
But hard worker, likes to tackle.
Absolutely.
From round 11, he averaged 106.3. So, and between round 3 and round 15, he actually went some pretty big scores. It was 121, 124, 127, 133, 141, 150. He's got a good ceiling.
And he can also pinch hit forward. So he is developing that string to his bow, and he's obviously tall enough that he can take a grab as well. So.
Yeah, fit enough, works hard enough. Harris Andrews is the next one, draft relevant. Defender, he only played 14 games this year, so he did have that injury which kept him out. Average 87.4, plays a high amount of time on ground, 95.6, which is basically what he played the year before, so no real change there. Injured again on 49, on 49 in round 15. So his true average is actually 90.3, and that is quite impressive. So again, another draft player who there's some room to move between that 87 and 90. He's definitely not a bad option.
I just think that, unfortunately,
Adams, you think he'll lock down?
He's moved towards. It's all matchup relevant. Like some games he peels off and he takes intercept grabs like it's going out of fashion. It'll be quarter time and he's on 50, and you're like, what the hell's going on?
Yep.
Other times it'll be quarter time he's on 5.
And it shows in his scores as well. So we had 3 90s, 4 100s, including a 127, 127, and 129. But again, those lows that we speak about, he did have scores of 43 and 44. So I think one of those was on Hawkins, where you go and tag like a lockdown, and you're not going to do well because you're sacrificing your role for the team to shut someone else out, which means you're not actually focusing on trying to get the ball. Yeah,
not to mention that Adams is made of papier mâché, so he's always injured as well, which means that then, of course, it falls to Andrews. So a couple of considerations there, but I do like him as a pick, and he's got the potential to average 100 if he has a perfect season.
Yeah, I think he did all right. Charlie Cameron, the next one, you could pick him up on the bench in your draft league. He did play most of the games this year. However, he had a knee injury concern. They strapped him up, and he basically had a 3-round period where he was not very good. He was limping. He didn't look good at all. And in those 3 games, he actually got a 52, a 21, and a 39.
Oh.
But outside of that, when he was actually carrying those injuries, he averaged about an 82. So it's not the worst option for your bench. Zack Bailey again.
He can win you a game from your bench.
He does go if he kicks
I've won a couple of because he can kick. Like, he can get you a 120 out of nowhere.
Yep.
So.
Yep. It's kind of a high-low depending on, your high highs and your low lows. Yes, your matchups.
Obviously, for teams who defend small forwards well, then you don't really play him. But if they leak goals to small forwards, get him on your field.
So Zack Bailey, we already touched on. He's actually forward mid this year, averaged 78.2. Definitely not too bad. He averaged 83 the first 13 rounds and then 62 the last 4. So obviously tailored off. That was his first real main dig of the season. So I expect him to kind of be, again, another good bench option. He would not really disappoint, I think. He had some great games. He had a 104, a 110, and a 114. However, being typical of Zack Bailey, he had some lows of 37, 48, 55, and 59, which is, again, why he's not really a stable, but someone you could throw on your bench, I reckon.
Excellent. I definitely think that he's bench worthy.
And the last one to round us off for the highly intensive Brisbane Lions is Oscar McInerney, the Big O.
Big O.
Now, the Big O averaged 93 the last 9 rounds. He had highs of a 123, a 128, and a 132. He's a solo ruck this year because Martin has gone, which means that he is definitely draft relevant. I can see him probably hitting that 100 flat average. The problem is he can have some low games every now and then, which will bring him down. However, number 1 ruck in a side generally doesn't score too bad.
He's also a great contested mark, which really, really helps.
Yep. And I saw, can you get the door, Chris?
I sure can.
Apparently a girl once asked for a date with the Big O and until she learnt what it stood for. So that wraps us up. And until next time, we'll see you tomorrow with our Carlton podcast, and stay tuned.
See you later, guys.
Bye.